Hello everyone, it's careening here once again. So today I thought about bringing another game, but I have to tell you some things about this one. This is a visual novel otome game, and I already did a bit of this demo by myself. And this demo has let's put it, you have to meet all of the love interests in here. You will have to do it in two parts, let's put it like that. And each part is probably going to take you, at just one go, it would take you 3 hours. If you wanted to really explore everything, it's probably going to take you five hours, maybe 4 to 5 hours. Then you have the other part, which you are going to meet because on the first one you meet 3 love interests. On the other part you are going to meet the other I think it's 3 love interests too on the second part, but it's going to take you 3 to 4 hours too. So having in count that this is a visual novel that, in my view, it's very narrative based, I thought about it, and what I'm going to do in here is I'm going to bring us 1 hour and a half for one part and 1 hour and a half for the other one, okay? And you might be like, oh, why don't you do it all? Well, as I said, it's very narrative based. I'm not the biggest fan of narrative based visual novels. I prefer when they are more like the Japanese ones, which are more in the interaction between characters based than what you have in the Western, which is always kind of like you're reading a book in here. But the game is good. I'm not saying this because the game seems to be really good, and the developers are proud to not put any AI in here. So everything is very, very handmade, let's put it like that. And it seems to be going in the right direction. What I felt while I played the demo was that it was very narrative driven, and it was very action driven too. Okay, so I didn't felt like I was getting a lot of romance in there, which is normal. Usually at the beginning you don't get a ton of romantic things going on in there. So another thing, this is a visual novel that it's based on the Robin Hood legend, and I don't know if you remember, but Marion was the love interest, the girlfriend, whatever, I don't remember very well, the girlfriend of Robin Hood. I think was like that, right? I don't know, it's been so long. I don't touch in Robin Hood's story I don't know, since I was a child or something, but I think it was like that. Marion was the one that he liked it or something. I don't know, you tell me, because I don't remember. So this is a romantic action adventure visual novel based on Robin Hood lore. Play as Lady Marion and choose what kind of leader and lover you want to become. Join Robin's rowdy rebels in Sherwood, or tackle the political pitfalls of the sheriffs of Nottingham. Fight for freedom and fall in love. This is from the developer Velvet Cupcake Games, and it's in early access since 2023, I think, so it's not completely out yet. Let me see it in here. So the immediate women, though of course of genders. Welcome to Avalon, an alternate world medieval kingdom in which humanity exists in sometimes uneasy balance with a mystical fae folk. Yeah, you also have the fays in here. Step into the shoes of the proud young noblewoman Marion and guide her adventure in a richly detailed fantasy world thick with political machinations and mystical intrigue. Decide who to trust and who to love. Can Marion make the right choices to save Nottingham from a dire fate? And yeah, we have. Let me see it again because I'm not sure. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. No, 7. Actually, they are 7. Okay, they are 7 apparently. Okay, I thought they were like 6. I did only the first part, so I'm going to see the second part with you. Another thing that is very, very important for me to tell you is that, and that's another one of those reasons why I feel like I don't want to do it like the full demo thing, which is like it has a writing that it fits the era. Do you understand? It has a writing that fits the era, but me as a non-native English speaker, I find it to be a bit difficult. Okay, so that's another thing, which is you are going to see me pronouncing things like in the wrong way in here, like I always do it in any game, but especially like in here there are going to be like words that I don't even know, or I don't actually pronounce them that usual, and then I kind of get like, is it like this or not, because I don't remember, like it's like words that I don't usually use that much. So yeah, that's the thing in terms of like the options. You can actually put like the self-voicing if you want. One thing that I need to tell you is that if you put self-voicing, you cannot put in auto. It doesn't work with one thing with the other. I don't know why, but it doesn't work. Like you cannot put like the self-voicing and have it on auto. You need to be clicking all the time. Yeah, I tried that. I was just like, because I was doing things in here while I was playing the demo, and I was like, maybe I'll just put self-voicing, and I have like to wash some dishes or something, and I keep like hearing them, talking or seeing like the story, but it didn't work. It didn't work because the auto is not working with the self-voicing. You can change the font. You can change the size, and I actually put it a bit of scale in here. I always like to put it a bit more. You can disable or enable some of the animations. And I think that's it. Oh, and you have like the explicit text, but do not worry, because it's not, even if you put the full Sherwood, they say it on their page, this is not aimed for 18 plus rating. Do you understand? Like, yes, maybe 17. Okay, do you understand what I'm trying to say? It's more like, yes, you will have some descriptions, but not the descriptions in that explicit, really explicit like thing. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Okay, it's for adults, but it's not in that way of it's going to be very explicit in certain scenes, if I'm making my point by saying this. Supposedly it has some extras. I don't know. This is not enabled for us. Another thing is that I had to put like the ambient sound to this low, because it was like something else, It's just really loud. I don't know, like I always think about this, which is like when they are like testing this, don't they feel like, because I'm very sensitive, like don't they feel like the sound is just something else, I don't know. It's that and the text box, like I always have like this thing with the text box. With this one is fine. It's not the text box in here, like that's not the issue. But like with the other games, where like the text box is like not even legible. Do you understand? Like it's like, why don't they just see that the person that is trying to read this for hours and hours and hours is going to, I don't know, get a headache or something just by reading this? But yeah, sure, you know. So they say that this is an enhanced demo. I don't know if they had like another one and it was different. So they are going to present us with a little intro. You are going to see. This is like Rowan, and Rowan, I think it's like a fae or something. I don't remember very well. Hey Nonino, I'm Rowan, here to welcome you to the Maid Marion enhanced demo. Don't mind me breaking the fourth wall. I was born fae. Yeah, that's it. I was like, I think it's like that. So I have some special abilities. Yes. Our demo begins part way through the game. So the game is not, the demo is not going to start right at the beginning where the game is supposed to start. Okay. In the full release, you will play through a prologue that introduces you to Marion and shows how she got into this whole mess. But for now, we wanted you to have a chance to meet our attractive love interests as soon as possible. Just make sure not to load any demo saves when you play the full game or you'll miss a lot. We are joining the action as Marion finds herself in an arranged marriage to Lord Geoffrey, a man she's never met. Her father didn't even give her the chance to go out on a social circuit and see more of the world's first. Rude. First up, you'll need to choose which main path Marion takes. If she faces her destiny and agrees to marry Lord Geoffrey, she'll end up in Sherwood Forest and meet Robin Hood, his Lieutenant John, and his cousin Will, the Scarlet Blade. Yeah, it's like this because I put it, but we can change it. I put it because I had the screen a bit far away, and that's why I needed to put it. Where is it? But we can put it like back to something better, maybe. I don't know if this did something or not. No, whatever. I know it wasn't like this when I just put it a bit more. If she decides to escape from her engagement, she'll end up in Nottingham, and we'll meet the sage Misa. I think it's like Misa, the Bard Alana, and the Chevalier Guy, and Lord Geoffrey himself. These two paths are completely different stories, so you should try them both. Yeah, so like if I start saying things that you're like, oh, you're not pronouncing the names and you're not pronouncing them very well, I am really sorry, you know. But for now, pick one and remember there are no wrong choices except for that one bad end. Toodaloo. So supposedly there's like a bad ending in here. While I was doing it, I didn't got any, but I don't know. So would you like to join the rebels in Sherwood Forest or become entangled with the city folk in Nottingham? So I started with this one and we start with this one and we'll see. Let me make like an idea of okay, maybe this hour and then we'll see while we are playing. So let's face my destiny and plan to marry Lord Geoffrey. Sherwood. So chapter 1, some most unusual bandits. Yeah, I think you can click on these too. So this is Sherwood Forest. A vast forest south of the town of Nottingham. We can do these ones too. Known for being particularly wild and magical, Nottingham holding encompasses most of the forest, making it a complex holding to run. Nottingham, a bustling mid-sized city, sometimes still called town by tradition, north of Sherwood Forest. A crafting town historically It's also in the perfect location to handle trade from the newly opened kingdom of Nibiru. It is thus of great interest to Avalon's current ruler, Prince John. Yeah, there's a lot of things to click. This one we know, Nibiru. A reclusive, closed-off kingdom on the continent to the east of Avalon, known as the Twilight Kingdom. Its people are semi-nocturnal and practice a celestially based form of ancestor worship. This is not good. Going from one to another. Yeah, I didn't click it when I was doing the demo the other time because, as I said, I was doing things. But now I'm seeing like this is not good. Clicking and clicking and clicking, like having more and more and more on the same one. The kingdom in which this story takes place, located on the northwest continent of this world, known as the Middle Kingdom, it is heavily influenced by humanity's relationships with the mystical Fae folk that share the land. The Fae, see, like now we have more in here. Magical beings that occupy spiritual space connected to Avalon. They require Avalon's wilderness for life energy. Only magically sensitive humans can see them unless they wander physically into Avalon. Intelligent Fae, with the exception of the cat's side, I don't know, are loath to do this as it leaves them vulnerable. I am not going to continue clicking. No. I think like most of the lore, let's put it like this. I think most of us, we have like an idea of the lore of, you know, the Robin Hood lore. And like clicking for the glossary, honestly, for me, no, I don't like it. I gazed out the window of my carriage, watching the sea of green roll by. Sherwood appeared far more lush than our local forest in Glastonbury. Yeah, I'm saying this because I'm not going to get out of here if I keep like clicking and clicking and clicking and clicking. And honestly, it's not that it's like something that is very important for us to know. Huge broadleaf and pine trees were coated in emerald moss, anchored by an explosion of verdant ground cover. The green upon green seemed to stretch on forever. Here and there I saw particularly unusual, magically enhanced plants that stood testament to this massive woodland being a seat of power for the Fae. I tried to distract myself from my dark thoughts by imagining the Fae cavorting beneath the forest pods, despite being quite unable to see them myself. I wasn't normally prone to flights of fancy, but... oh, shadows. I cursed softly. Nervously, I wiped my hands down the skirt of my velvet dress. Green as the woods outside. This was really happening. I'll been tossed up in my country noble's best and shipped off to marry a man I'll never met. See how sentences are made? They are made like in the old days. The way like the verbs and all the way they are put in there. You understand? So I would not, as I usually say, this is like one of those that I would not recommend for people that are not very comfortable with English. They will not be able to do this game. They will not be able to understand, they will not be able to understand this game. Still, I'll make the decision to face the destiny that had been presented to me, and I was going to stick with it, probably. What would I do if Lord Geoffrey had a mean streak, or worse, if he was violent? I gazed down at my traveling boots, in which I'll manage to conceal a small dagger. It was no doubt insufficient against a man with a lifetime of combat training and an entire troop of guards, but it was all I had. My father would never have allowed me to bring my sword. My troubled thoughts were interrupted as I heard a yell and was thrown backward into my seat. The carriage had stopped. Theo pulled his horse up next to my window with a stern look on his face. He decided to return home to his husband in Nottingham, so he'll volunteer to lead the small escort that was guarding my carriage. Fallen tree across the road. It's probably nothing. Look up tight just in case. I nodded and pulled the wooden shutters down over the windows, locking them securely. The doors were already locked, but I dashed them anyway just to be safe. Surely it couldn't be a bandit trap. The Sherwood Fae were supposed to be quite powerful. They would never let a band of ruffians go around chopping down trees in their woods. I gasped as a loud thump sounded on the carriage roof, followed by shouts and the muffled sounds of battle all around me. Perhaps the Fae weren't as powerful as I thought, or the bandits had found the dead tree to dip. I gritted my teeth as the carriage shook under the weight of the roof's lender, apparent scuffle with our driver. I started thinking of the best way to negotiate over the dowry chest that lay beneath my seat. Honestly, I didn't mind handing over all of it, but I'll be rooted before I allow them to take me for ransom. After one last mighty shake, the carriage stilled. I heard a quick clinging sound and the door opposite my seat swung open. A tall and neatly dressed stranger, Sunjati, by the looks of him, stood on the other side. Had he picked the lock on the door that fast? Okay, this one we probably need to understand. Of or related to the continental civilization of Sunjata. A civilization of city-states ruled by wealthy merchant prince families located on the continent south of Avalon, known as the Sunlands. Sunjata is dominated by a monotheistic religion and is the most technologically advanced society in the world. Okay. He removed his sword belt and slid into the seat next to me. The belt and a pair of long, scabbarded swords landed softly on the opposite seat. He languidly crossed one long leg over the other as though he were here for tea. Then he returned to me with a thin half smile. "Hello, princess." He spoke in a fine tenor, with a trace of a Sunjati accent. "But princess, really? Don't mind me." He then folded his arms and turned his gaze to the opposite wall, seemingly done with conversation. I backed against the door behind me and stared at his fine clothes in a pathetic manner. This man couldn't possibly be a bandit, could he? Confused and a bit frightened, I couldn't force my mouth to work for a few moments. Finally, I managed to bleat out, "Who are you?" "I'm just keeping an eye on you. Boss orders. Wouldn't want you traipsing off in the forest, would we?" He hadn't answered my question, but now I knew he wasn't the boss. Perhaps that august personage was engaged in the lively fight I could still hear outside. I had a feeling my guards didn't have the advantage. There weren't a lot of them. We hadn't expected this. If I was going to try to escape, best to do it while I only had one man to deal with. The bandit didn't appear either slow or foolish, so I needed to rely upon my greatest strength in order to escape. He seems to be the versatile type of guy. He was very fast opening our door, like even how do you say something picking? Picklocking. Picklocking. I was like, ooh, I used the word. He was very fast doing it, so I don't want to try to attempt to escape because he seems like the very type of fast guy. So I tried to bribe him with my dowry. I leaned just a tiny bit forward. "So this boss of yours, does he pay you well?" He turned his head ever so slightly towards me. "Well enough. I'm not saying that he would not like that. In fact, I already did a bit of this demo, and let me tell you, he would probably like you to be like that type of person that tried to escape and all of it. I'm just saying that in a logical way, how would I actually act having like, I would actually act in another way, but I only have like these two choices. So it's more like between one or the other how I would actually act. Well enough. Don't you want better than that? I know where the key to that box is hidden. I gestured to the elaborate dowry box under the seat opposite us. I'll be happy to give it to you if you let me have that little tripsy through the forest. You could pull a big handful of jewelry out of there and be gone before anybody knows better. He let out a sound that was halfway between a snort and a chuckle. Not interested. So you are content playing two-bit goofer to some forest bandit. Look at you. Surely you're meant for better things than that. That one seemed to strike home, and his eyes narrowed. He reached out and grabbed my chin, pinching in none too gently between thumb and forefinger as he stared angrily down at me. Look, princess, I'm not having a great day. Yeah, I like to be out there having fun, but instead I've been put on a babysitting duty. So here's a tip. We're not here for your jewels and fancy dresses. We are here for you. His aggression was the last straw for me. I slapped his wrist to the side and attempted to launch myself past him to the freedom outside the open door. But faster than my mind could even process what had happened, I found myself pressed back against the carriage seat, my arms pinned to the side. He was bent down over me, laughing. Now that's more like it. See, like he would probably have liked it more if I had picked up the other one. He seems the type that likes women that have like spirit. Do you understand? I ignored the part of my mind that couldn't figure out how he'll move so quickly. Instead, I let out a growl, and tried in vain to struggle free. My struggle was soon interrupted by 3 oddly spaced knocks sounding against the carriage door. I stilled, realizing that the sounds of fighting from outside had ceased. My captor's expression turned serious as he gave me an order. Lift the latch. He was too smart to move his arm and do it himself, opening himself up to another escape attempt. He barely loosened his grip enough to let me move my own right arm. With a sigh, I followed his instructions. He kicked the door open, still holding me securely. I turned my head and peered out the open door at the man standing outside. Based on his bold posture and confident half smirk, this was most certainly the boss. Dressed in expensive-looking leathers, he approached me with the brashness of a bandit and the grace of a nobleman. This experience was getting stranger every minute. Hello, milady, Robin of Locksley, at your service. What in the blazes are you doing? She's a handful, boss. Now my captor sounded more fretful than threatening, but he still wouldn't loosen his grip on me. Let me guess, you told her nothing. Figure you'll better prefer to do the honors. The man called Robin turned his attention back to me, fixing his face in a welcoming smile. He placed one foot on the carriage step and held out a hand to assist me. Sorry about my cousin, Lady Marion. I'm afraid there's not much time to explain, but never fear. Never fear? When they were here for me, when they knew my name. I could see 2 of my guards over the affable Robin of Locksley's shoulder. They were knocked out and tied together at the side of the road. I glared at the hand outstretched towards me as I tried to gather my thoughts. Oh, for shadow's sake. With that, Will tossed me unceremoniously at his boss. I let out a pathetic squeak of surprise as I tumbled out of the carriage. But when Robin caught me in his arms, I exploded into a flurry of thrashing limbs and angry punches. I heard Theo yelling for me to run, but I couldn't manage to struggle free. This man's lithe? I don't know how to say this. Lithe. I know what it means, but I don't know the pronunciation. Lithe. I'm going to say lithe. I'm sorry. I'm not certain. And I keep having these because, as I already told you, like, there are things in your language that I cannot understand, which is like, for instance, in my language, is more like, if you have like two consonants between that vowel, if you have like a vowel after that vowel, it sounds in another way. Do you understand? But with yours, it's absolutely not like that. Absolutely not like that. You have moments where you have like two consonants, like in here, you have like two consonants, and you open the eye, like you have others where you close the eye. So it's like, it's impossible for me to know. It's impossible, honestly. Like there's like something about the phonetics in English that for me it's a hard crack for me to understand, like, honestly, because you have like things that they do not make sense. They just do not make sense to me. They do not. Like, it's the same with the for instance, you say like leech with the key. You say key? Yeah, I think it's a key. Like you say leech, but sometimes you treat it as like, sometimes you treat it as a G, other times you treat it as a J. It, for us, is different. We need to put a vowel in there to understand if we say that consonant in a certain way. With you, it's like, whatever. And I do not understand why you do this. Like, why do you have like this type of phonetics that don't match one thing with the other? You know, oh, sometimes we say it like that. It's more like, sometimes we say it like that, other times we say it like the other way, having consonants between or not, or do you understand what it's like? Or vowels between, I mean, it's, in this case, vowel between. I'm always like confused with the things, which is I need to hear it first, because otherwise I will never just like look at a word and understand where you put like the accent on it. Never, ever, ever, ever. Like, English has like this thing, which is I simply, absolutely cannot understand your phonetics. I cannot, honestly. Okay, let's continue. This man's lithe, I don't know. Luke was belied by the strength of his grip. He held me tight while dodging my attacks. He now weighed, not the eyes. My, you are a handful. He was laughing the jerk. Sorry, cuz, I think this'll make things easier. Mr. Temper had apparently fetched a few lengths of rope. With the same unnatural speed I'll seen earlier, he tied my feet together, then my wrists. Robin let out a frustrated sigh as I wrinkled ineffectually in his arms. Yeah, then you have like that thing of like having like the exact same word and then you use it for different meanings. Yeah, you also have like that. But like in I don't think we have. I'm not. We probably have it. It's probably like few words. But when I think about that, I also think about Japanese. Like in Japanese, you also have that. Like, no, you don't have that. You don't. Sorry. You have that in terms of like sounding the same. Yeah, with us it's probably like that. We have some that they sound the same, but they are not. You do not write them in the same way. Yeah, I think like that, like having the exact writing but different meanings and even pronunciation, it's only with yours that I think I kind of find that when I think about it. Yeah, and you have like a ton, like so many. It kind of makes me wonder why suddenly English became like the globalized language, because you have like these little things that makes it like kind of like impossible for other people to actually like really dominate. Do you understand? Like really dominate your language, because you have like these things that are like, unless like for you natives, but even natives, let me tell you, I've been seeing a lot of natives that they are natives to the English language, and even them, they don't know many times they are like me, like I don't even know how to pronounce this. So I'm like, yeah, I mean, it's your own language, what the heck, you know? But yeah, sure. This is not the way to treat a lady, Will. Not my fault she doesn't act like one. And we do need to get out of here before that one gets free and causes trouble. He jerked his thumb back towards the carriage. I turned my head and saw Theo tied to one of the wheels, struggling angrily against his bonds. Several men dressed similarly to Robin were stowing weapons and mounting great stacks before riding them off into the forest. They are riding great stacks. God. It's because of the Fae, probably. I didn't see anybody trying to loot the carriage itself, an odd fact that occupied my mind until I was distracted by the sound of flapping wings. A large dove nearly smacked me in the head before landing on Will's shoulder. It pecked him several times and he swore softly. We need to get out of here now. Robin nodded. The two rushed over to a large horse and worked together to hoist me over the saddle. Robin hopped on before me as I hung there on my belly like a sack of potatoes. Now, if we untie you, will you promise not to struggle and risk falling off the back of a horse? I may have been hopping mad, but I wasn't stupid. I nodded and Will came around to either side, cutting my bonds without comment. Robin helped me up and settled me in front of him in the saddle, his chest pressed against my back as he reached for the reins. It was far too close for comfort. It was struggle, though. He didn't stink like most bandits did. Actually, was that cologne I smelled? Robin spurred the horse into a trot down a deer track that led deeper into the forest. I looked angrily back at my new captor, hoping he'll be more forthcoming than the last one. Who are you? Why are you kidnapping me? It's not a kidnapping, it's a rescue, my lady. What kind of rescue involves tying someone up and carting her into the forest without a by your leave? He chuckled, not looking the least bit repentant. A certain damsel in distress wasn't giving us the benefit of doubt. A shame, really. Now hush. We are making a getaway from folk who would actually do you harm, and that mouth of yours is far too pretty to gag. I didn't think he was serious about gagging me, but that only raised my ire. I wanted to smack him so badly. Instead, I let my shoulders sink in humiliation. All these years training with the sword, fighting off bandits and raids from neighboring holdings. I thought I was strong, but this man had made off with me as easily as albeit tiny child. What was going to happen to me now? We rode in silence through the endless green enchantments of Sherwood Forest. Occasionally, Will would pull up beside us on his great stag, communicating with Robin via hand signs. Eventually, we slowed a bit, and I saw a new great stag trot up behind us. Riding it was one of the largest men I'll ever see. He was definitely Sunjati, though dressed similarly to Robin rather than in the colorful garments most of his merchant countrymen wore. Robin smiled and hailed him softly. What's the news? All clear. The large man nodded genially to me and pulled up beside us as both our mounts slowed to a walk. Hello, Lady Marion. I'm John, Robin's second. It's good to meet you. Unlike Will, he had a noticeable accent. I couldn't help but think it pleasant, hearing those round vowels in his deep voice. I found myself smiling back at him briefly before checking myself and schooling my features back into a frown. Hello, John. You seem like a reasonable fellow. Would you mind asking this barbarian here to take me back to my carriage? Both John and Robin chuckled at that. There was something about John's manner John's manner told me there was no mockery in his laughter. Never fear, we are almost there, then we can have a nice talk, no? Of course, that was my plan all along. I didn't want to have a nice talk, I wanted to get away from the other bandits in Avalon, and not much later I saw my possible salvation appear on the horizon, a bridge across a river. If I could keep Robin from holding me on the horse, I could jump into the river and swim to freedom. Now was the perfect time to grab my boot dagger. I reached one arm down as subtly as I could, pretending I needed to scratch an itch. Looking for your dagger, milady. I'm afraid I already have it. I do like a good boot dagger, though. What? When had that happened? Probably when they'll be hoisting me on the horse. Rot this man. I turned my head back to him and retorted angrily without thinking. Really, what would you do with one? I imagine that a man who has to go around abducting women can't be very skilled at using his dagger. Oops. Still, his face merely twitched for a second before he moved in close to my ear and murmured, "Care to test that theory? Just say the word, and I'll be happy to give a demonstration." He'll spoken that as an invitation, not a threat, but I refused to be lured in by this charming bastard. My mind jumped to my favorite method of fending off unwanted advances. Let's offer up a clever retort. Certainly, I'll test the theory. Just bring me your 5 angriest former lovers. I'm sure they'll be happy to tell me all about it. Robin's aggravating smirk opened up into a genuine laugh. I think I'm going to like you very much, Lady Marion. Not if I could help it. I kept one eye on the approaching bridge. The river looked suitably deep. Good, it was time to improvise. Well, perhaps I could be persuaded not to find you entirely appalling. I smiled slightly at him and reached for his hand, keeping eye contact as I brought it towards my lips. He looked rather pleased by this development. Almost there, thank goodness his feet were the ones in the stirrups. 3, 2, 1. I kissed the back of his hand and immediately bit down hard on the skin between his thumb and forefinger. He yelped and yanked his hand back by instinct. I swung my left leg over the saddle and launched myself off the horse into the river. Oof. I'll not had the opportunity to dive in gracefully, and I was hit with the dual shock of the cold, rushing water and the pain of my poor angle of entry. For one terrifying second, my body refused to move. Through sheer force of will, I got my arms working and managed to get my head above water. I then tried to turn my thrashing arms into an actual swimming stroke. That's when I realized the critical flaw in my escape plan. I was wearing a well-made velvet dress, which was becoming waterlogged and heavy. It was all I could do to keep from going under as the river's swift current dragged me along. I managed to kick off my boots, but there was no way for me to get out of the dress and stay afloat at the same time. My arms began to tire and I started to panic. That's probably why I didn't notice the large figure directly in front of me. I collided with a solid chest and was swept into the arms of the large man called John. No, not after everything. He cradled me in his arms like a precious child, but I was too distraught to notice that he was taking such good care of me. Rot great stags for being swifter than a rushing river. Rot this man for being so tall that he could simply stand in the river and wait for me to come to him. As he plodded inexorably towards the shore, I punched, kicked, and even tried to bite. It was like fighting a stone. Finally, as we emerged and our wet bodies splashed water along the shoreline, I collapsed. It was all too much. I didn't know who these men were or what they wanted me for. I just knew that all my strength and intelligence had been no match for them. My exhaustion, fear, anger, and humiliation poured out on me in wrecking sobs. John stopped and sat us down at the base of a large tree. He let me cry myself out in patient silence, patting my soaked back soothingly. Later, I would notice that he'd even removed my jewelry from me as it had been tangled in my wet hair. Yeah, as I said, like there's a lot of reading in here. It's very narrative driven. You have a lot of interactions in here, but it's very narrative driven. And you know, I am not the biggest fan of this. I prefer to have more interactions than like reading and reading and reading like I'm reading a freaking book in here. But this is like a Western visual novel thing. You have this constantly, and the thing is like I've been doing this every day, and I reach a point where I start feeling very tired about it. I feel tired about it because I am used to the Japanese way of creating visual novels, which is not like this. Okay, and yeah, yesterday at the end of the day, I was actually like seeing some demos because I was once again kind of like cutting on some because I was like, you know, it was because I just looked at some screens and like those text boxes, or it was like because they were very narrative driven, or I was like, I need to cut on this because yeah, I get tired of this. I honestly get really tired of this because it feel like you're just reading books in here. You're just reading books basically. I don't know. I honestly don't know why the Western developers starting to do this, which is like bringing just books as visual novels. But yeah, they started doing this. But you know, eventually I lifted my head unsure if there were still tears streaming down my face or if it was just water falling from my hair. They were a bit rough with you, no, I'm so sorry, they mean well. We don't wish to harm you. I gave a long, shuddering sigh. Why? What do you want with me? We heard you were coming, and we thought that you probably don't know the truth about the man you are meant to marry, Lord Woodthorpe, the sheriff, they call him. We wanted to tell you what he's like, and to help you get away if you wanted. Oh. Then why in all the shadows had they not simply told me that in the first place? Yeah, girl, I don't know. Like script thing, you know? Because otherwise you wouldn't fall in the water, you didn't have like all of these actions going on, yeah. I took a deep breath to avoid screaming that question at this kind man. He had rescued me from drowning, and then he had taken time to care for me and at least partially answer my questions. Will you come with me? I won't leave you alone in the forest, but I promise that you will not be kept against your will once we tell you what you need to know. He seemed like my best hope in this situation. I didn't have much choice but to decide to trust him for now. I nodded. With a gentle smile, he stood and helped me to my feet as well. He then took a look down at me and removed his sodden cloak. It's wet, but you might want to, well. I looked down at myself. The neck of my dress had stretched considerably, and my breasts were almost exposed. I accepted this cloak with as much regality as I could. Wrapping the large garment around myself, it fell down past my knees. I should probably carry you here. He kneeled down and held out his arms so that I could walk into them, willingly this time. I wonder how I should treat with this man, who was both captor and rescuer. Yeah, I think that like I only saw these three, I didn't saw the other ones. But between these three, I think John is like extremely beautiful. Extremely beautiful. I think this guy is very beautiful. And I would probably just do his route first just because he's like very pretty. Yeah, it's just like that. Alright, you can carry me just this once, thank you, but I can walk on my own. Sure, just carry me. I want that. I took a step towards him and winced as I snapped a twig beneath my bare feet. I'd forgotten about having kicked off my boots in the river. I suspected I wouldn't regret letting John carry me. Yeah, because you have like Robin Hood, but like this guy, he's very pretty, very pretty, honestly. Despite my waterlogged attire, he lifted me up as though I weighed no more than a twig. With a quick whistle to his great stag, which twisted one ear and then bounded off through the woods, he got us on our way. I rested my hand on his damp shoulder and he walked without a word of complaint, despite the fact that his own boots must have been quite waterlogged. He spoke up after a few moments of walking. I am sorry about my brother, he can be difficult, but he's a good kid underneath. Your oh, Will, you don't look half-brother technically, but a true brother to me. I'm hoping he'll figure himself out one of these days, but never mind that. We fell silent again, and he began singing softly a few moments later. It was a popular ballad about the vengeful ghost of a drowned woman, and I smiled at the reference despite myself. His deep bass singing voice was as pleasant as his spoken one. Sometime later, I heard shouts and lifted my head to see Robin and Will waiting at the bridge. Great, I gave them both a sour look as we approached it. Thank the light, my lady, what in places were you thinking? She wasn't, obviously. Leave her be, you two. We are almost there now, Lady Marion. Robin shook his head. I see she's cozy with you at least, old pal. I'll be jealous if it all wasn't quite so soggy. With that, everyone fell in beside each other, walking their mounts. I began to feel a bit chilled in the early summer forest, but John's body heat kept me from shivering too badly. It wasn't much longer until we stopped in front of what appeared to be a steep mountainside. What now? Robin stepped in front of the group, gesturing like a showman. This is the best part. Much to my dismay, John followed along as Robin walked directly at the mountain. I made a small noise of protest. Close your eyes, it's easier the first time. Why not? I squeezed them shut and felt him carry me forward for far longer than he should have been able to. My stomach began to flip with worry when I realized we should have run into a rock face some time ago. Still he kept walking. I squeezed my eyes shut as tightly as possible and prayed for the shadow's protection. All right, you can open them now. I did, and what I saw in front of me nearly defied description. Robin grinned as he showed off the absolutely impossible camp Will wandered into. Lady Marion of Glastonbury, welcome to the headquarters of the rebellion against your fiancé. It was like nothing I had ever seen before. If I thought that Sherwood was an enchanted place, this valley practically glowed with the magic of the Fae. This was the kind of secret forest glen I read about in accounts written by the few humans who had wandered into Fairy and managed to return with their sanity intact. A huge clearing stretches out in front of me, but it was not the kind of cleared land you'll see in a human settlement. Sure, the stony fire pit in front of me wasn't unusual, but beyond that, the landscape was dotted with cottages that had literally been grown from the earth. Every building in this camp was constructed of living trees, with hardly a sign of tool use or other human constructions to be found. This is very idyllic too, isn't it? This fantasy of like, yeah, because like we build houses like inside of trees and stuff like that. Honestly, everyone that lived, that even had like a house near a tree, knows the hassle that it is. I'm not joking with you. Like our house, like in the countryside, we had like a huge tree nearby the house, and it was horrible because of the roots. They just like destroy your floor. They totally destroy your floor. They get into your water sewers. Like, it's horrible. You have like no idea what it is. So it's like, we all love trees, okay? I love trees, and in terms of shadow and all, it's so good when you have like a tree near your house. But okay, in terms of actually being able to live in there, because a tree is a living thing too, and it has roots, and it's going to get everywhere, absolutely everywhere. Yeah, so there's that. But we love to put like these fantasies in our minds, It's kind of like that. I'm the logical type, so for me it's like, yeah, we love to put this. But when it comes to reality, it's not so pretty. No druid had the power to command plants in such a manner. Who were these people who had captured me? I turned my eyes from the side and opened my mouth to ask a question of Robin when we were interrupted by a loud shout. Light above and shadow below, what did you boys do to this poor lass? A thoroughly ordinary middle-aged woman bustled over to us, looking quite cross. Nell, meet Lady Marion, who... Yes, time for that later. Come, my lovely, let's get you cleaned up and out of Johnny's cloak. She grabbed my hand and I giggled at reference to wee Johnny. A sheer exhaustion mixed with wonder at this magical place had made me compliant. My new acquaintance chatted at me as she pulled me along through the camp, leaving my speechless abductors behind. Apparently they knew better than to intervene. I'm Nell, the tailor for this rowdy bunch. She used to have a shop in Nottingham, and I paid my taxes right and all. But then the sheriff's men started asking for even more money for protection, they say, from them, more like. I held them off until they said they'll burn the shop down. Now I'm here, thrown in with this lot. That's awful. I'm Marion. I'm, kidnapped, I guess. Nell cogged the sarcastic look on my face and chuckled. We left the main camp and we're walking on a flower-lined dirt path towards what sounded like a waterfall. You'll be all right, my lovey. We'll get you cleaned up and then the boys can tell you what they're all about. You'll be needing some new clothes and things. I hope you don't mind tunic and trousers, and I have some small ones I can take in right quick. Oh, thank you, that's just fine. In truth, I'll always wondered what it would be like to dress like a man, so I was delighted by Nell's lack of deference to my nobility. Perhaps she hadn't heard Robin's aborted introduction and didn't even know my status? I decided not to enlighten her. As we walked along, the crashing sound of the waterfall became louder. Nell stopped in front of a clearly designed sign with male and female symbols painted onto it. A wooden arrow perched on top of the sign, and she moved it over the female symbol. We moved on, and the forest cleared to reveal a gorgeous waterfall basin. Nell smiled to see my obvious pleasure at the scene, then took me along the water's edge until we reached a warm, steamy cave off the side of the falls. The walls were lined with glowing fairy worms, and I caught a whiff of rotten eggs in the air. We passed into a large cavern, and the steamy pools I saw there made me exclaim in delight. This is also a thing that would probably not happen. You having like a waterfall, and then suddenly you have like a cave with warm, hot spring kind of water. It's another fantasy thing. It doesn't happen like that. Okay, let me just tell it. Hot springs. But this is like for you to immerse yourself. Like, do not think about things like I think, because I have like this logical mind. So don't. Um, I'll never seen hot springs before. They were a bit smelly, but their warmth beckoned to my shivering, weary body. If I ever saw a lass who needed a hot spring, it's you. Will you stay put for old Nell a while? Gladly. I was done running. I didn't know if it was possible to find a way out of this magical valley on my own, and my energy was thoroughly spent. Besides, I was now far too curious about this fate-touched place to want to leave it just yet. Nell pulled the tape. Okay, Nell pulled the tape from her apron pockets and did some quick measurements. She then left, and I stripped and soaked away my stressful day. That's the thing, I always need to read a bit more to understand what I'm going to say. A pile of towels had been helpfully left by the springs, along with a veritable banquet of herbal medicines and poultices. I somehow managed to escape injury on the rough journey here, but this was yet another sign that these rebels were uncommonly civilized. Sometime later, Nell returned to find me stretched out asleep on a towel, luxuriantly naked in the warm cavern. She woke me and presented me with my new clothes. The boots didn't fit quite right, but she promised they were temporary. I stretched curiously, feeling the trousers move against my legs. If nothing else, this attire was a new kind of adventure for me. After some quick hair detangling, I felt worlds better. I was ready to face my captors or rescuers as they would have me believe. Once I was fully changed and ready, Nell showed me to my guest's cabin, where I somehow subdued Robin was waiting for me. I sat down across from him on a surprisingly sturdy mushroom stool. Robin's eyes widened when he took in my attire. You know what? Let me just see one thing in here, because I'm thinking about something. And it's just... No, it wasn't. Okay. Yeah, you know, this type of illustration. It was reminding me of another game that we have out there. It's a visual novel too, but no, apparently I don't have another one in here from them. It was totally reminding me... I don't remember the name. Crossroads? No, it's not Crossroads. It's another visual novel that I was like, maybe it's from the same developer, but no, apparently no. No, okay. Okay, sorry, let's continue. Robin's eyes widened when he took in my attire. Milady, oh, I'm so sorry. We can find you something more fitting. No, please, this is quite comfortable. Never mind that, what is all this? I gestured to the furniture and the Fey ground cabin in general. It's a bit of a tale, but I'll like you to hear it. Peace? He held out his hand, then pulled it back slightly in mock concern. If you keep your teeth to yourself this time. I wanted to give him an earful about the way he'd treated me thus far. And yet this unexpected sincerity, along with his natural charm, lowered my defenses. I suppose there was no real harm in hearing him out. As long as you behave. I gave him an uneasy smile, which he returned readily, looking relieved. Then he sat back and began his tale. I hope you'll excuse me. I'll have to be serious for a moment. It's not my forte. I nodded. 2 years ago, John and I returned from the war to find that Nottingham was a right mess. My father was killed by the Nibirians, so I was the new Lord of Loxley Holding, northeast of Nottingham. I'm so sorry. He bowed his head briefly in acknowledgement of my sympathy. So yes, you know about Prince John and his taxes. And I know we have debts to pay, but here in Nottingham and the holdings nearby, it hasn't been fair at all. I'm afraid my fellow nobles have been pushing all the burden onto the crafters and merchants, even onto farmers and other serfs. They are hurting while we feast in our manors. Despicable. Indeed, and so a year ago there was a rebellion planned in Nottingham. The old Lord Nottingham was awful, a vain, greedy tyrant. I know I should have just looked to my own holding, but that never was my family's way. I helpful fund the rebellion, gave them places to meet, decided I'll help them fight, though I didn't want to take Nottingham for myself. It might have worked too, but someone betrayed them, betrayed me too. The rebels were gathered in Sherwood, and I was about to join them to march on Nottingham. Before I could, Lord Geoffrey of Woodthorpe showed up at my door with an arrest warrant for sedition. It was signed by Prince John himself. Lord Geoffrey, the man I was supposed to marry, things were starting to come together now. I learned later that Lord Nottingham and his guard had ambushed the rebellion on the edge of Sherwood Forest. His face twisted into a look of grief and regret. It was a bloodbath. If only I'd been there, maybe I could have. He shook his head. But I wasn't there. The only good thing to come off it was the Nottingham and his son were killed, leaving no heirs. Prince John and his personal army rode into Nottingham as fast as they could, declared martial law, destroyed the guilds, even those that had refused to take part in the rebellion. Then he installed Geoffrey of Woodthorpe as the provisional lord of Nottingham. Folk called Geoffrey the sheriff, since he seems more lawman than lord. Robin took a cleansing breath, and I saw the usual light begin to return to his eyes. As for me, my dear cousins John and Will sought to free me from prison. They met an ex-druid called Tuck, who helped them break me out on the condition that we assist him with some sort of mysterious quest he's on. He claims to be working on behalf of the Rose King and the Wolf Queen. The Fey Lords of Sherwood? That's impossible. Ever since the signing of the pact, the Fey had never recruited humans to their binding. And yet, you believe your eyes, do you not? He gestured around at the impossible cabin in the impossible camp. It was true, I had no better explanation. I like to speak with this Tuck. That's because you haven't met him yet. Anyhow, this camp was prepared for us. Tuck uses his considerable powers to assist our cause, and in return we shelter him, feed him, and don't ask too many questions. We have our own problems. Things didn't get better in Nottingham after the sheriff took over, they got worse. Geoffrey Guard is thoroughly corrupt. I'm sure Nell told you her story. I nodded. She's not alone. A good half of the folk here are crafters or merchants who were turned out of their homes by the guard. And many of the rest faced worse. Indentured servitude if they are caught holding money back or simply can't afford to pay their taxes in the first place. I inhaled deeply in shock. But that's practically slavery. Indeed, and conditions worsen every day in Nottingham's poor districts, with hardly anyone hiring labor anymore. That's where we come in. How are you acting on all of that from here? I won't lie, it's rough for us. Geoffrey has the soldiers, the weapons, the money, and the power. But we have one thing he'll never be able to take from us. A ridiculous amount of optimism? The power of public opinion. He paused for effect and noted the skepticism written across my face. Putting on a particularly charming smile, he leaned in like a bard telling a children's tale. What do the people long for most when times are tough? Proper food and shelter? Of course, but they need more than that. They need a hero to give them hope. A powerful man who is on their side, one they can rely around as we relied to King Richard in the war. Rallied. They say heroes come from the light, right? But what happens when those in the light are venal and wicked? That's when your hero has to come from the shadows, and an outlaw hero. What do you do? Sneak into Nottingham and give inspiring speeches? He laughed. We protect them from the sheriff's goons. We rescue those who have been indentured. And best of all, we steal from the rich and give to the poor. You are philanthropic bandits? Exactly, and let me tell you, the sheriff is infuriated by us. More folks are joining our cause every day, and hopefully we'll soon have enough for a real rebellion. I had to admit, his enthusiasm and strength of will were infectious, even if I wasn't entirely sure whether he was a genius or a madman. But that aside, Lady Marion, we have a spy in the sheriff's manor, and when she told us about you, we knew we had to rescue you from a future with that man. And now that I've met you, well, you're brave, intelligent, and beautiful. He doesn't deserve a woman like you. So what would you bid me do now that I am your prisoner instead? I may have said that more pointedly than necessary, but the way they'll rescued me still stung. Now that you've heard the truth about Lord Geoffrey, you're free to leave at any time. We'll help you return to your father if you like. I assume he'll agree to break your engagement to a man who cannot even protect his own roads from bandits. You're probably right. You may even keep your engagement, not that I'll recommend it, of course. There's a price to be paid. If that's your choice, we'll have to ransom you to him dearly. He gave me a challenging look, one that I returned with equal heat. Let me think on it. Very well. He rose and stretched. You may stay with us in the cabin as long as you wish. Dinner will be served shortly, and I believe the lads have a small welcome celebration planned for you. Indeed. Then let's see what entertainment the bandits of Sherwood can provide. I took Robin's proffered arm, and he escorted me back to the center of the camp, where a rustic but well-prepared meal had been laid out upon rough-hewn stone tables. Robin's company of rebels numbered some 30 members, largely men. They were dressed similarly to, though more simply than, their leader. All eyes turned to us as we approached the central camp. Robin cleared his throat and spoke out in the clear voice of an experienced leader. My fine fellows, may I introduce you to the Lady Marion of Glastonbury, who will be our guest for some time. The assembled rebels applaud me politely. I hope you will treat her with all due respect and demonstrate to her that we are finer folk than Lord Geoffrey's court of vipers. A cheer rose at the proclamation. Robin smiled to it, then gestured for their attention once more. I trust you all have your duties for the morrow. Please see Master John if you need further instruction. Rebels of Sherwood, we hold the line until when? Until King Richard returns. Long live King Richard. Long live King Richard. And now we eat, drink, and make merry. His speech complete, Robin led me to a table away from the main hurly-burly of the feasting rebels. King Richard, you believe he lives? A shadow crossed his face at my question. But he shook it off quickly and turned his usual winning smile on me. Naturally, I know him, milady. He became acquainted during the war. His leadership brought us safety through that conflict, yes, but he's so much more than a war hero. He believes, as I do, that things need to change in Avalon. The people need more control over their own destiny. Cruel and greedy lords must be unseated. He will return. He must return. But that's enough of that. Shall we speak of merrier things? Of course. There was more I wished to ask, but Robin seemed to be a man inclined towards joviality. Despite his dearly held convictions, I let him steer the dinner conversation. He was a perfectly charming companion, and I was feeling quite relaxed by the time the sun was dipping below the horizon. The rebels began pulling out instruments and clearing space in the middle of the camp. A young man trotted over to Robin and whispered something in his ear. He nodded and placed a hand on my shoulder. "I'll be back soon, milady." I was left alone as the sun set, setting on the edge of the growing festivities. The rebels had been directing curious gazes at me for some time, but were keeping a respectful distance. I suppose that even these outlaws respect the barriers between commoners and nobility, so I scanned the crowd for familiar faces. Several men were building up a bonfire in the fire pit, and those who had brought instruments were tuning up. I spotted John amongst them, sitting with an unusual drum between his legs. It took a bit longer to find Will, who was leaning against a tree on the edge of a clearing, arms and legs crossed. It would be nice to find a way to occupy myself, be it with one of my new acquaintances or by satisfying my curiosity about the wilder rebellion. So I'm going to do a save in here. Let's put it in here. And what am I going to do? Because I am reaching the hour and a half that I was kind of like telling you about. Let's stay a bit with each one of them. And you are going to ask me then what is going to happen after this. Well, you can play the demo yourself, or at least I did this part. And she will have to make a choice between going back to her father or fight with the rebellion. And I was like, if we are doing these guys, we are going to stay with the rebellion, of course, right? So I chose to stay, and the rest was more like training, sparring and training with the guys. Okay, so I felt that it was very action driven, and I didn't actually got a lot from the guys. Okay, like having like some more doki doki moments, or even like really understanding the personalities. Do you understand? Like, I think this game is very narrative driven. Okay, and in that aspect, I felt like it was lacking a bit more into that doki doki romantic kind of feeling on it. And that's why I'm not feeling like we need to stretch it more than the hour and a half that I was telling you about, okay? It is the truth. So let's just spend a bit with each one. Let's start with Robin. Wait for Robin to return. I decided to stay put and wait for Robin to return. Now that we'll spend some time together, I had to admit that his familiar, noble mannerisms were starting to win me over. The musicians began to play and folk began dancing around the bonfire. It was a far more chaotic, merry event than the balls that I was used to. Yeah, I think it's better because at least you get like an idea of each one of them, right? I think it's good like this. And then we stop in there. It was more like the peasant festivals I'll occasionally get a glimpse of while touring Glastonbury. The musicians nimbly wove group and couples danced together, and the largely male gathering danced without care for the gender imbalance. I found it rather refreshing. It wasn't long before Robin returned and held out a gallant hand to me. "Care to dance, milady?" I did. I took his hand and he swung me out into the crowd. He was, of course, an excellent leader, and I soon found that the unfamiliar steps were simply more rudimentary, sped-up forms of the dance I knew. I found myself smiling openly for the first time since my father returned home. "You have a beautiful smile. Be careful, or I might not want to let you go after all." It may have been a light teasing compliment, but his natural half smirk added just enough sensuality to make my stomach do a funny little flip. I was starting to see how this man could capture the popular imagination, especially the female population. I imagined that indulging him too much would be bad for the heart. Well, one night of indulgence wouldn't hurt me. Oh, she's like considering one night. Ooh. Robin seemed disinclined to let me go, and I didn't mind. Somehow I'll acquire energy to spare despite my long, difficult day. We danced together until the fire was low and the musicians had become more lubricated and started to sound a bit sloppy. Robin gave me a final spin as the celebrations wound down, then fetched a couple of lanterns. He handed me one and I looked curiously at the glowing blue lights within. Are those will-o'-wisps? Indeed. How did you catch them? They are simple creatures. They obey the will of their queen. My head spun at the implications. Cottages grown from the earth, living furniture, tame half-faced spirits. Just what had happened to Sherwood Fae to cause them to cooperate with a motley group of humans like this? It was a question I'll have to save for another time. I shook the cobwebs out of my head and followed Robin as he led me back to my borrowed cabin. I had enough to think about tonight. We paused before the cabin door. I await your decision, Lady Marion. I only pray I've convinced you to stay far away from Lord Geoffrey. You certainly put forth an impassioned argument, and I have to say I'm not at all fond of indentured servitude. Treating one's people with such an heavy hand reeks of desperation. Spoken like a woman with a true noble heart. He took my free hand like a gentleman, but the gaze he shot me through half-lowered lids as he kissed it was anything but gentlemanly. I revised my earlier observation. This man could be very bad for the heart. Good night, Locksley. I used a formal name with particular emphasis, but he merely gave me an amused smirk in return. He knew he'd gotten to me, the bastard. I don't know if I need to do this part. Maybe not. I think we're not having anything more with him. So let's load and let's go to John. I approached the musicians and John greeted me with a wide smile. It was a wonderful smile, warm and welcoming. He patted the stone bench next to him and I sat. I nearly gathered my skirts around me out of habit when I decided I was wearing trousers. When I realized that I was wearing trousers. Rather handy, these things. It is good to take some time for merriment, no? I had precious little of that since I took over my father's holding, so I nodded in a hearty agreement. The fiddlers began a reel, so John turned to his drum and I watched him fascinated as he coaxed a variety of sounds out of it, depending on how he slapped the skin with his hand. I never seen a drum besides the Avalon bodhrán. I don't know, I never saw something like that, which was hit with a stick. Bodhrán, I don't know. It's called a djembe. A djembe. Like you have the e in there, but you say djembe. I know that we have a lot of people in here that actually can play. Yeah, in here we have a lot of people that came from Africa, so yeah. He explained to me as he played a steady rhythm. I learned to play as a boy and had a Sunjati trader bringing it to me in Nottingham. It is good to have something to remind me of home. It is, I like it. I wonder how John had come to Avalon, but this noisy party wasn't a good time to ask. Instead, I sat back and enjoyed the music. Soon the group was playing a popular ballad that I knew and began to sing along under my breath. Don't be shy, sing out. Oh, you don't want to hear me. I have a terrible singing voice. Nonsense, everyone should sing. All right, you asked for it. I sang a bit louder, self-consciously. I'm always being told that although I can't sing on key, my voice is too shrill and harsh. After the song, John beamed over at me. His handsome face, illuminated by the bonfire, was like a cool drink of water. You have a wonderful voice. Don't lie, I know it's not very good. He looked at me seriously, and I realized that this man didn't have an insincere bone in his body. But I like it. Your voice is strong and clear like a hunk. So I'm a hunk, am I? I suppose I can be a bit carnivorous. I deflected the compliment out of embarrassment, but John gave me a mischievous smile. I don't mind that either. I felt a blush creep into my cheeks. I should really think more before I opened my mouth, but John merely turned back to his drum for the next song. Robin eventually returned to the party and whisked me away for a dance or two, but I always found myself returning to John's side. His gentle company made me feel safe and comfortable. Eventually the fire was banked down and the rebels returned to their cabins and long houses. John bade me wait a moment and returned with 2 small lanterns that shone with an unearthly blue glow. Are those will-o-wisps the same thing? I gazed at the lanterns in wonder. Will-o-wisps were malevolent, half-faced spirits that were far more likely to lead humans astray than help them. John shrugged his large shoulders. You have to ask Tuck how he tamed them. They are very useful when your home is made of living wood. John showed me back to my cabin and placed a comforting hand on my shoulder. My cabin is right over there if you need anything at all. I'll leave my lantern outside so you can find it. Thank you. You've been so kind, and I might be washed up dead right now if it weren't for you. It's not worth mentioning, but I'm glad I could help. Have a good sleep, Lady Marion. You too, John. The soft smile he gave me before he turned away stuck in my mind for some time. Yeah, like this guy, he's gentle and he's sincere and he's like gorgeous. Probably like my favorite of all of them. So let's go back to load. So try to bring Will out of his shell. I've always had a bit of a contrary streak. Seeing my erstwhile carriage bandit looming at the edge of the crowd, I couldn't help but want to needle him a bit. I strolled over to Will, who gave me a half-cautious, half-questioning look. Hello, Will, are you going to stand here like a stick in the mud, or are you going to dance? Do I look like someone who knows how to dance? I eyed his fancy outfit. Frankly, yes. Well, I don't. Come then, I'll teach you. This is a 3-step, it's easy. He grimaced, but I held my hand out insistently. He let out a heavy sigh and heaved himself off the tree. Still, he managed to summon enough manners to take my hand and lead me into the circle. You should pick this up quickly if you're skilled with swordplay. I demonstrated a simple pattern for the dance, and while his movements were clumsy at first, he was indeed a quick study. I signaled to the musicians to continue in the same rhythm, and Will groaned as John grinned at us in delight. You two really are brothers, aren't you? Half brothers, but yes, I'm afraid we are. I shook my head, thinking of how John had been nothing but kind and understanding to me during my ordeal in the woods. Who wouldn't want to be related to him? But then, I didn't have any siblings. Maybe I just didn't understand. Well, let's show him what you can do then. I gently guided Will's hands to the proper hold location for the dance and counted him in. This time he caught on faster than I expected. More. Wait. His posture was perfect and he was leading with competence. I hadn't actually taught him any of that. So he'd known how to dance all along, but for some reason wanted me to think he didn't. I couldn't bring myself to broach the topic, though, and ruined the lovely feeling of dancing with a strong and capable leader. Instead, I relaxed into his hold and enjoyed the natural push and pull of the dance. He had none of the gonkiness that sometimes burdened tall young men, moving with grace and confidence now that he'll stop pretending to be awkward. A few songs later, he inclined his head to me and stepped back. Are you satisfied now, princess? It's Marion, and yes, thank you, you did very well. We walked together back to the edge of the crowd, and Will didn't object when I sat next to him on one of the rocks that bordered the camp central area. We watched the others dance for the rest of the evening. Will amused me with mildly acerbic observations of the participants. I found him rather pleasant company now that he'll soften to me a bit. As twilight darkened into night and the bonfire burned down, the rebels began to drift back to their longhouses and cabins. Will stood and offered me a hand up. Suppose I should show you back to your cabin. How gallant of you. He fetched a couple of lanterns that shone with the unusual blue glow. Were those will-o-wisps seen in there? I suppose if living trees and plants could be coaxed to grow into shape of buildings, will-o-wisps could be coerced into serving as lanterns. There were so many questions swirling around in my mind that I had no idea where to start. Lanterns in hand, Will escorted me to my guest's cabin and bade him good night. Just as I was turning to open the door, I heard him clear his throat awkwardly. I looked back at him. You know, Robin is charming and my brother, well, he gets on with everyone. Why did you choose to keep me company tonight? Did I detect a hint of the real Will under the sardonic front? It was a rather sweet question, but I knew better than to make a big deal of it. I guess you could say I like a bit of a challenge, and since you're dressed like a gentleman, I was curious if you could actually act like one. I see. I think I'll let you keep your final judgment on that to yourself. With a curt wave, he turned and vanished into the night. I smiled to myself as I entered my cabin. So I'm kind of curious about like the other one, but I don't think we're going to meet anyone on the other one. So I'm just going to like kind of like skip, wander around on my own. Let me just see. Now, oh, okay, no, we have another one. Okay. Yeah, this guy appeared. Truth be told, is he one of the? Let me see by the name, because I don't remember his name. That's when I saw a dark-clad figure stride purposefully through the crowd towards me. Of everyone I met so far today, he looked the most like a bandit. He had a slightly slouching, devil-may-care gait and seemed a bit too thin for his frame. As he got closer, the bonfire illuminated his unusual auburn hair, and I idly wondered if this were what it's like to be able to see the Fae. Surely the scath might resemble a man such as this. He stopped in front of me with none of the deference the other rebels had shown. Instead, he gave me a challenging grin, held out his hand, and spoke with the warm burr of a Stanish native. Stanish. Care to dance, Dove? I certainly hadn't had any better offers, and there was something irresistible about the way he was looking at me. What was the saying? Right, this is the kind of man my father warned me about. Well, my father had thrown me away to a questionable nobleman, so why should I heed his warnings? I answered the stranger's challenge. Certainly. He took my hand and vigorously pulled me into the circle. Having only danced at noble balls in the past, I was not prepared for this experience. It's funny that I don't remember his name. I could see if he's like one of the love interests too. Maybe he is. It's just I didn't kept his name in my mind, so I don't remember. The Tin Man was a talented and sprightly dancer with a surprising amount of strength in his wiry frame. With no regard to propriety, he spun and lifted me around the floor. All the while, he smiled impudently at me as though he were my social better. It was fun. I didn't want to fully admit that to myself, though, so I gave him a disapproving look. You dance like a peasant. Hey, and you like it. I couldn't dispute his claim, and I didn't find myself resisting as he began pulling me tighter to him. When our eyes met, I felt a strange sensation as though I'd been struck by lightning and it was flowing through my entire body. We were both starting to breathe harder, but neither of us moved to break off the dance. He gave me a look that made the bonfire escape from its confines and rage through my veins. You feel it too, don't you? I didn't dare answer, but I did. Oh, I did. It felt like the rest of the world was fading away and we danced alone in the shadows. Come. It was half question, half command. I had the feeling I was on the verge of doing something I couldn't take back. I was free now. Was I not free to make my own decisions about things like illicit invitations from alluring red-headed bandits? I didn't do this guy the other time. Because I picked just one and I picked John because I think John is very pretty. But this guy, he appeared after, and I do not remember his name though. The thing is, like, are we going to get like a bad ending if I go with it? That's it. The tempting connection I felt to this stranger overcame my better judgment. He stepped backwards, I stepped towards him, and he smiled at me like a cat contemplating its prey. I was no prey though. I wanted to see where this led. The shadows seemed to thicken around us as he pulled me away from the bonfire. Walking backward all the way, he never broke eye contact with me. I couldn't hear the music anymore. I couldn't see anything but his eyes, tempting me, seeming to glow with promise, going to kill us. Where were we? I wasn't sure beyond a vague sense of forest. And then it didn't matter as I felt myself consumed by need. I backed him against a tree. He laughed as our bodies crashed together and our lips met hungrily. I threw my arms around his neck and felt his hands rove up and down my back as we kissed. He nipped my lower lip and I let out a hungry moan. Our tongues met, twining together, and desire pulsed deep in my core. I dug my nails into the back of his shirt and delighted in rumble of pleasure that elicited from him. We continued this lusty, desperate dance for some time until we finally separated, panting slightly. I gave him an awkward smile. Hello, I'm Marion. I know. And you are? Now, that wouldn't be any fun, would it? He reached out and ran one finger gently down my cheek. I'll be seeing you soon, Dove. Welcome to Sherwood. With that, he disappeared, seeming to melt into shadow. I blinked. The sounds of the celebration faded back into my senses. I turned and saw I wasn't very far from the bonfire at all. What in fairy had just happened? They had been enjoyable indeed, but what was that strange connection we shared? And hadn't I just promised myself I wouldn't repeat the mistake I made with Alvin? Feeling a bit embarrassed at myself, I half stumbled back into the light and was brushed by a worried-looking Robin. Marion, I've been looking everywhere. Are you all right? My mind cleared up enough to think of one alarming fact, the name of Sherwood's resident druid that Robin had shared with me earlier. Tuck. That's a Stanish name, isn't it? Ah, you've met him. Oh, let me see. So, is he in here with the other guys that we can date? I mean, I bet, because we already passed, like, something together. He's not. He's not. You have Robin, John, Will, the Lord, the Sheriff. You can actually date the Sheriff. Then we have like two girls, Mesa and Alana. And then we have Guy. So we passed some time with this guy, but we're not able to date him. Is that okay? Okay. I think so. Robin heaved a disappointed sigh. I'm sorry, whatever happened, I feel responsible. No, it's fine, I'm fine. He shook his head. Let's get you back to your cabin. You'll feel better after you sleep him off, probably. He took me by the arm and picked up a couple of oddly glowing lanterns on the way. The flame was blue. Okay, it's the same thing. Yeah, about the will-o-wisps. Inside my cabin, I plopped the lantern down on the wood-burned table and collapsed into the bed. There were night clothes in my size sitting on the end of the bed. That must have been what Nell was doing during the party. I wonder what the expected exchange was for favors done by a person who wasn't once a vassal. I'll never faced such a transaction before. Work done neither out of obligation nor for currency. That question would have to wait for the morning. I shrugged out of my day clothes and into the night ones, then buried myself beneath the blankets. I stared at the blue light across the way. How exactly do I douse a magic lantern? I spoke to myself, but the floating orbs blinked softly, then went out. Well, that was that then. Sleep claimed me in an instant. Okay, so we're going to stay here. I'm not going to read it more. Let me just see if I wanted to just like skip past this situation just to see if you're okay with it, just to see, because I joined the rebellions, and I'm like negotiating with my father for safety. I'm kind of curious, and I think this will get you into like, sorry if you don't want to like skip it, if you don't want to get spoiled. Okay, yeah, it would give me the end. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, if you do not join the rebellion, because it wouldn't make sense, right? You are doing like these guys, and you were just like, oh no, I will just go home. So yeah, I was like, yeah, this one will probably give me like a bad ending, but I was curious. Let's see if this is going to give us a bad ending. Yeah, so you joined the rebellion. You know a little bit more about the brothers because they have some special abilities. Okay, each one of them. And you are going to like train and spar with them, with each one of them. And that duck guy is going to appear. Yes, I remember that he's going to appear too. And I don't remember anything more, honestly. It's just, if you are curious about, just play the demo, okay? And I'm going to take a break right now just to eat something, and I'll come back and then we'll do the second part, okay? So thank you very much. Just wait a bit, I'll bring the next part.